Okay, so this is the Deerfield Conservation Commission, June 11th, 2018, and it is 7:03. Starting right on time. So we are gonna jump right in, I guess, to easements and land protection, just going down our agenda. I don't have anything on the Reservation Road project. I don't know, Judy, if that's just there to remind us to keep it on our radar, or did someone have something that they wanted to speak to related to that?
Well, I thought we had to respond to the, to the Board of Selectmen as to whether we feel it's, excuse me, whether it's an important conservation piece or not.
Oh, that's that one. I thought this was something else, sorry. I thought this was that,
No.
open space subdivision.
No, that's
that we've
not the
been
light.
talking about. I see. We do not need to know about this Reservation Road thing tonight. It's gonna be several months before that happens, apparently. Is anyone prepared to talk about that tonight? I forgot to prepare for that because I forgot what it was.
Well, I do have a handy map, and I would like the minutes to show a huge applause for Judy Marshall.
And first off, let's let Ben and Haley know what we're talking about, because I don't know if they were part of the,
I think we were all on the emails,
were you? Okay.
at least,
Yeah, in fact, you, boss, said we should
Or at least some
become
of them.
prepared to talk about this, so you
Yes,
get us
and then I
homework.
Yeah.
didn't do that, so sorry.
That's okay, we're ready.
Okay, good. Take it away, Kate.
So, not to make a decision tonight, but I just would like to draw everybody's attention to Judy Marshall's very excellent email of May 24th, which provides maps of the properties and property cards and gives a little context. In terms of timing, I'm always a big believer in visiting. I don't know if anybody wants to see the paper locations of these. But visiting the parcels, we can certainly look at our new and revised draft green infrastructure map for that area. And go visit, but it appears to me that there may be some how should I say this? Some potential conservation value because of location and frontage.
yeah, I mean, that was all, yeah, I don't have any insight into these properties, but in just looking at them, their proximity to other conservation properties and, frontage on water bodies would probably have them ranked pretty high on the wildlife action plan maps as well. But I haven't taken a look at that yet, but I intend to.
I mean, my understanding is that they're not asking us to consider a purchase. This is
Right.
simply whether they would take it for conservation purposes, or they would do something else with it as a town, right?
Mhm.
As far as wildlife corridors are concerned, it was ranked highest in New Hampshire and in supporting landscape on the Wildlife Action Plan.
Highest in New Hampshire or supporting landscape?
Well,
Like pink, green, or
they
orange?
form wildlife corridors, both highest ranked in New Hampshire and in supporting
Oh,
landscape.
okay, so both,
So
yeah,
both.
yeah, yeah, so, I think,
But that's 2010. So they haven't
yeah,
updated
that's the
it
most recent.
since it's most recent.
And I wouldn't think that.
Or no,
has
2015 is the most recent. Some has changed, but I'd be surprised. If anything, I would assume those are ranked higher because water bodies in the last revision flushed out a little bit stronger. So,
Do we want to respond right now to the Board of Selectmen, or Kate, you're suggesting that we visit the properties first?
Yeah, I think we actually could do both. I think it'd be great just to write a little note saying thank you very much for part of this opportunity to comment, and given a preliminary review, we're very interested in visiting the parcels to evaluate.
is that just a heads up? Is it to ask permission? Is it to see if they want, the Board of Selectmen want to join, or?
I don't know what people think.
I mean, I've already responded and said thank you for this opportunity. I think if I write back, we should have something of substance, unless it's just to say we'd like to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Or here's what our preliminary analysis suggests, but we'd like to confirm that with a site visit.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And then just, I maybe ask if we need to get permission from someone.
Spoken like someone who's lived in Deerfield for a while.
And so I'm assuming, Judy, you captured what Kate and yourself and the others just said about this property? I can look at the minutes from my email. Is that fair?
Just generally, that Kate said we should thank the Board of Selectmen, and
No, I mean in
you said they were
terms of
very interested in,
these criteria that you noted.
Kate suggested visiting the parcels, review the new green infrastructure map, that of concerns were location and frontage. Haley suggested reviewing where they stand on the wildlife action plan. And that was
But you
pretty much it.
noted that
Judy already
they,
knew, yeah.
you noted,
Yeah.
can you add that?
What, add, into the minutes or to, okay,
So that I then can capture that in my email.
okay.
And one,
I can send you the clip that I did, you can pick whatever you want out of here,
Okay,
okay?
great.
one friendly revision, please call it the draft new green infrastructure map.
Oh,
Just add the word draft.
okay.
Are we wanting to propose a time to visit, or we just ask, or just say that we want to do this and see if the Board of Selectmen, anyone wants to join us?
Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable. If
Hmm?
they want to join, they can.
Does anybody want to go this month?
Might be able to do
Yeah, if the date works. It's looking full.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that. I mean, I'll respond to that when I email Andy back. I could do it not this weekend. Maybe the morning of the 23rd, Saturday.
I'm out of town that weekend, but
Yeah, same. I could
Okay.
potentially do the next weekend, the 30th, but then the weekend after I'm out as well.
'Cause Kate, I know you're not around as much this summer, so maybe tell us when you're available.
Well, if it's looking, I mean, basically, it's unlikely that I will be attending. I'd have to go on my own, I think.
I mean, you proposed, I think you should attend, so if you can't attend, then, then maybe everybody could just drive by on their own or something.
Well, that's a little tricky because, realistically, the small one, there's one on 107, one on Reservation Road, and there's one that is good for hawks and great blue herons to, well, not even great blues, it looks like there's not enough water there for that one, so. There's just these two parcels, realistically, and actually, I'm just trying to think, I don't know anything about either one. Are there homes there? Are they vacant? Does anybody know?
Idea.
Those two properties specifically,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You got the tax card information, Judy. I know you downloaded, I just didn't look at it.
41825, that's, I believe they're both vacant, but let me just check here. Yeah, vacant, and Vacant. They're both vacant.
Okay, and
I
I'm
don't know.
assuming the one in the back is because you can't get there.
My philosophy is if we have the possibility for conservation land, why not take it?
Yeah,
I mean, is there
I
any reason
kind of
not
agree
to, I
too.
guess, is
Yeah.
my.
But it just sounded like we needed to form some sort of argument, but perhaps the green infrastructure map and the wildlife action plan maps are enough to do that.
Well, and also location, one has frontage on the Lamprey River and one
Right.
has frontage on, it looks like a pretty major wetland.
Yeah, and that's not a small parcel
Right.
for Rockingham County, you know, it's like,
Looks like it's 20-something acres. On Reservation Road, which has a fair amount of development pressure, so,
It is adjacent to a couple of properties that are in current, in current use, they're fairly large.
and I think you said there's, Pawtuckaway is one lot away,
Yeah, if you know where Longwood
Oh,
School
yes?
is, that's what the only thing separating it from, let's see, I have in here. Okay, 62 abuts the 154 acre Longview school parcel. And that in turn abuts Pawtuckaway. So it's contiguous.
And what's that water body that it's next to? Is that a wetland or a pond?
It looks to me like a pretty big drainage that's a tributary to the Lamprey. And the other one seems to be right smack in the core of the green infrastructure connector to the Lamprey Valley. Just looking at,
And I don't have the legend.
this is the new draft.
mm-hmm.
So here comes 107,
Yeah.
reservation.
I guess what I'm
But this-
trying,
The bump.
what I'm trying to get to is, I'd like to send this email, and I'd like all the kind of points that have been floating here to kind of be documented.
Okay.
So, can we just go through the 5 bullet points that we kind of have,
That's a great idea.
been throwing around?
Mhm.
So one is adjacent to a Lamprey tributary. Is that what you said? And one is right in the middle of the what, green infrastructure?
Well, all three are pretty much within one of the green infrastructure corridors.
Okay, so all 3 are within one of the green infrastructure corridors.
Yes, which means it's basically an important linkage between larger unfragmented areas in town,
Such as Bear Paul State Park.
such as Pawtuckaway in this
I mean,
case.
Pawtuckaway, excuse me.
Right.
An important linkage between, can you please repeat that?
That's an important linkage to Pawtuckaway
Okay.
State Park.
Larger unbroken tracks,
And one is.
larger undeveloped tracks, let me say that.
And I think one you said has significant potential development pressure.
Well, 2 of the 3 are on roads with a fair amount of frontage.
Okay, so 2 of the 3 have significant frontage, making them subject to development pressure.
Yes. And, where did my paper go? Here it is. So one has frontage right on the Lamprey River. I mean, this is totally obvious, Select Board knows this, Andy's already mentioned it, but one has a lot of frontage on Reservation Road. And then the other one essentially is quite landlocked and quite backland, but it seems to have an important location between some wetland areas.
So where's the third one on that? Is that over on the right?
So,
So
yeah,
it's this one?
this is
okay.
the one on the Lamprey
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and 107. This is the one on Reservation, which is 20-something acres. This is the one that
Right.
it's good to be a hawk to get to. But I think this is a wetland complex that forms the headwaters of this drainage, which heads down into the Lamprey. And all of those are in the drainage associated with the green infrastructure in that part of town. Right in here, Ben, like that.
Yeah.
Right in there. Connecting, since drainages are very important wildlife corridors, it's connecting Pawtuckaway with Point South.
Mm.
We think.
So my sense is that we have some compelling arguments to provide as to why they might consider taking these for conservation, and then we obviously will let them decide as they will.
Now, Sarita, you were suggesting we look and specifically address the criteria in the open space plan, weren't you?
I didn't, but that's a good idea.
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying. So let me look up. Okay, I'm in chapter 7 of the Deerfield Open Space Plan of August 2010, Priorities for Deerfield. And there were 7 criteria for acquisition protection of open space. And then there's some additional criteria. So let me go through the first 7 very quickly, just doing
Not
this.
too quickly.
Well, yeah. Lands within the most current green infrastructure open space network.
So tell me the number, and then I can go back to the open space plan, and I can
Okay.
pull off the verbiage, and
This-
just,
this
and then
is on
just, I'll
page-
put the comment.
This is on page 25.
Yeah. It's the
Chapter
same ones
7.
that I used for last month's minutes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, number 1, lands within the most current green infrastructure open space network? Yes. Protects Deerfield's most sensitive natural areas, including prime wetlands, we don't have those, but aquifers, vernal pools, streams, lakes, wildlife habitats, old forest stands, and ag soils. I think based on Andy's comments, it sounds like wildlife habitats
And the Lamprey River.
and the Lamprey River are the connecting unfragmented areas,
Yes.
preserving natural and cultural resources, provided by scenic views, class 6 roads, cultural, historically significant lands. I don't think so, not so much. Number 5, it says, continue to work with land trust and state and federal agents to develop a natural greenway and trail system linking Bear Brook, Pawtuckaway, and Northwood Meadows. So I would say that's part of that.
Except for the fact that that is private land between them.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
okay.
it's
Recognizing
adding to the corridor
Okay.
potential. Number 6, isn't really apply, it's talking about working with others to establish priorities. And then 7 is working with neighbor towns to connect green infrastructure and linkages. So it's not, there's no regional connection here, this is all within Deerfield, so 6 and 7 are NAs. And then additional criteria, which are bulleted, so they're not numbered.
What page is that one on?
It's on 25, and it goes on to
25.
26.
Oh, 26 is the additional criteria?
25 and 26 are the
25 and
bulleted
26.
items. So the first one is potential linkages. We already addressed that one. Importance for the presence of aquifers or rivers, so certainly, and including wildlife corridors, so certainly rivers, so that would be that second bullet is yes. Third is an area does not have enough public open space or threatened by development. Additional recreational opportunities. I don't know enough about that area to address that. I don't know if other people do.
As far as frontage is concerned, would that can be considered development? Would you consider that, that a yes in there because it has the potential for development because of the frontage?
Well, I think it's more the issue of not enough public open space or threatened by continued development. So
Oh,
maybe it's the threatened by continued development would be the criterion there, then. townwide versus special group benefit, acquisition benefit the town as a whole, or select group of residents with additional opportunities. I don't know how to address that one. I don't think I know enough. Anybody else?
Say that again?
Yes, townwide versus special groups of residents.
Yeah, I think a drive-by could answer some of those questions.
Yes. Just put that one on hold and maybe just say question mark. Outdoor recreation potential.
That's
Up.
five.
It's on page 26. It's the next bullet. Opportunities for hiking, walking, skiing. My assumption is at least hunting and hiking. Cost and availability of the parcel. Financial impact of removing the parcel from development. Says residential parcels may cost the town in services, but a commercial property may be a positive contribution to the tax base. So I don't think there's much commercial pressure on these. So I would say there's really no financial impact. In fact, it may save the town money. And then last is aesthetic benefits to the general public and preservation of the town character.
Yeah, that big one especially.
Yes,
I will say, are you all set, Kate? Is that then?
that's it.
Andy's initial email said there was a 76 acre parcel and a 23 acre parcel. I think with 76, he was reading the map, the lot number.
Yes.
So I mean,
It's
just,
Eric
3.8.
mentioned that. and
Oh, okay.
That is accurate.
All right, so that's maybe
That
something
one
to
I
point
could
out.
potentially-
oh, gotcha. Okay, I see Eric's email now.
See business.
Well, regardless,
'cause
so
it's
we're
wrong.
dealing with much smaller parcels than I initially had thought.
I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
it's that.
Right, but it's all residential down there.
Yeah.
So I think what Eric exactly said, that is all three lots. Exactly, is in the acreage 76 is part of the label. That's what Eric thinks.
Actually, you could argue too, like, that backs up to the fair. It might be better to leave that.
What are you saying?
That little property is like right across from the fair.
It is?
It'd be kind of a nice buffer to maintain that as woods. Yeah, you can kind of, it's like right there.
What did you say it was?
Across from the fairgrounds.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either until I looked at this.
Whoa. New context. Whoops.
Have we ever done this before? Acquired land this way?
Oh, yeah, in the past,
Yes.
quite a bit.
But ever with the parcels this small?
Well, we have a very small one, which is Alva Chase. Several of our town forests were acquired this way in the
Yeah.
past. But size-wise, I don't know.
are you sure it's across from the fairgrounds?
It looks like it's,
The fairgrounds are south of
I mean, I
there.
can show you on Google Maps, but
Cotton Road and, I mean, this is way up by the dump.
sorry, I'm talking about the small one that's to the
The
southwest.
the 3.7 acre one? the
It's right near,
5.7?
yeah, it's right near the bend in Lamprey. There's kind of like a little peak north-south. If you look at it on like Google Maps, it's really quite close.
Well, Reservation and Cotton Road are way to the south from Reservation Road on 107. You'd have to go way south before you'd ever hit the
I think
fairgrounds.
he's talking of that.
Yeah,
okay.
the fairgrounds are way down here.
So like, I can bring it over if you want. It's, from what I can tell, it is right at this little bend in the Lamprey, based on that map, and the fair is like right there, right across the river.
Okay.
I mean, it is kind of interesting that it fills that bend in the river regardless.
Mhm.
That would protect that little habitat.
Right.
I mean, again, we were asked to provide sort of conservation
Yeah.
value. There's no cost to the town with the exception that they could presumably sell this to someone else. And then the question is the conservation value, does the conservation value offset that? So even if they're small, to me, it's,
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I was just more wondering about like if we did, take on the easement process, like what that looks like with a 4-acre lot. I mean, there's just other,
Oh, I don't
I
know,
was
they
just curious.
wouldn't, I mean, the town has conservation lands that aren't under easement, so they wouldn't necessarily have to be under easement. I think the question is whether they would be set aside by the town for conservation purposes. And I suppose then we could decide whether putting them under easement was really worth the cost and
Mhm.
trouble.
Right.
One of the things I'm just thinking about the Lamprey parcel that you think is close to the fairgrounds is there's actually relatively little public access to the Lamprey River. There's the Menard donated park just up from her office at the toe of Meeting House Hill. But there aren't a lot of other public access points, so this might be something else to consider, which is not a, we don't know the character of the land, but it may have potential access for public access to the river,
Mm.
just as a thought.
Except it is, that one is landlocked, isn't it?
Hmm?
Except it's landlocked.
It's on
What do you
107, I
mean?
think.
The little one right
The
here.
little one is landlocked.
No, I'm talking about the
No.
one on 107,
Oh,
I see,
Okay.
yeah.
right on the river.
The other little one,
Sorry.
The other bigger little one.
yeah.
The Three Bears, the one that's just right in the middle. By the way, Judy, you have a frog in your throat here for the Conservation Commission.
it comes and goes.
Anything else on that? I think I can craft an email with that.
I think that's good.
Kate, anything else?
Do you want to see this draft map at all? Is it helpful to you?
Are you suggesting that you're gonna hand it to me to take home?
No.
Then no, I don't wanna see it.
I sent it to you electronically. That's the best I can do for you.
That's fine.
Okay. But I think that the GIS guy over here has it right, because I'm looking at where the fairgrounds are, and I think that's exactly the location. Is north of the fairgrounds, ironically.
I didn't realize that the Lamprey like skirts
Right around the
a
back.
couple
Oh,
trees
yes.
around
Yeah.
the field. yeah.
Absolutely, yes, it does. It totally does. So,
Show us on this map, Kate.
Yeah.
just so you can see on this map,
He's talking about this parcel here,
mm-mm,
correct?
no.
No.
Oh,
No.
not the little 5.7 one?
The
There's like a
little
3.8
3.8
to the
Neither one.
south.
I
What
will
little
come back.
3.8?
Because this is a
No,
bend
no,
in the
there is no
river too, that's what
3.8
we were
one.
looking at.
Hold on.
No, that was the one that had the wrong acreage?
I think he read the lot number, which was 76.
Instead it was 76 acres, but it's actually 3.8. The lot number's right.
This
Oh,
one
wrong.
up here,
Then this
But
one, and isn't it that one,
this-
another one?
that's 24, and it's 3.77 acres.
24.
Let's see, where's this email?
You're the one who sent this
I
one.
get- Yeah, but the lot, yeah, it's this one, and this one, and this one.
Huh? What row?
26, let's see. 26, 25, 26, and 62.
Lot numbers.
25
Well, that's a 70, that's actually is a 76 acre
26.
parcel.
Oh, it is.
and 62.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, that, and 62 is the 76 acre one.
I was wondering, because
And
he
where's
said it's right
60
across
62 is
Reservation
right here.
Road,
Okay,
and that
so
wasn't
this
making
one?
sense. Well, either way, well, so remove the Lamprey River comments,
This
but.
one? And what are the other two numbers? 62?
25, 26, which is the little one. 25
Oh.
is
Oh,
this.
26.
is here.
And 25. Oh, so these two are
25,
yellow,
26,
but
and
this one's
62.
not. Okay.
Yeah.
What's
Oh.
this one? Just a mistake?
Sometimes they come up that way, you know, when I'm trying to pull up a map, but it stays yellow. Sometimes it colors things that you
But
don't
it's a
want it
different
to.
color yellow. She
Yeah.
colored this in. by
So
hand.
what, so can you just say, what are the three tax map numbers again?
62, 25, and 26.
Okay, so we're actually looking at a 23 acre almost 100 acres just bisected by Reservation Road.
Exactly, this right here.
Great, even better.
Yeah,
Let's
Yes.
take it.
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So this is a never mind there,
That's a
so
never
forget
mind.
it then.
Yeah,
You and I
you
are.
can't have it.
You and I are somewhere else.
But it's funny, we were
Barking up the wrong tree.
looking at this one, which is in this bend of the river, that's what we
Mhm.
were.
And it's 25 and 62 that have the significant
Or
road
maybe this
frontage.
isn't a river, I don't know what this is.
It's,
It's-
the river's
it's,
down here.
So what's this blue thing?
It's a tributary.
So it's still water.
Yeah,
Okay.
Lamprey comes through here, but I remember I kept tracing it back to see what this was, what it was on. And I think in the email I was asking whether it was part of it, or, here, don't pond streams and wetlands located on the parcels form part of the headwaters of the Lamprey. All this stuff. And I apologize for not having the legend there.
Don't apologize.
No,
I can't get it on the maps, it's just
I have
part of
all
the
parcels,
program.
Don't worry about it.
No, this is great.
I apologize for that.
It's, yeah, at least that's my understanding, that's the correct parcels.
Yeah, that looks even better.
25,
It does.
26, and 70, and not 76, it's
We're 1862.
which is 76 acres.
Cool. Okay, so I think we are all on the same page now, and I think we have our bullet list, and I think we're ready to move on. Can we agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
62 and 25.
Okay, so in that case, are you ready, Judy?
I guess I am, yeah. I'm not gonna get any more out of that. I'll
That's
go
fine.
back to the thing.
25.
So we're gonna move to Marston. Kate, can we do that?
Yes.
You're not convincing me.
No, because I just want to make the note here. It's 76 acres, but it's parcel 62.
Yep.
Okay. Very embarrassing for a geographer to be in the wrong place. So, okay, now I'm ready to go.
Okay, so we're gonna give an update on the Marston Farm project number 31. So it's mostly a status update, I would say.
Yep.
And Kate's gonna jump in when I miss something. But, we met with, the landowner Guile By and the potential future landowner Sean, Labrie and his wife Michelle, and Dan Kern at Bear Paw. So this was Kate and I and those three. And the primary purpose of this meeting, well, it was twofold. One was to discuss forest access. So just as a reminder, the Marston Farm is currently in 3 chunks. There's the 128 acres that Guile By is donating that will become a town forest. There's 38 acres that Guile still owns that is part of the L-chip project. And then there's the 15 acres that the Labries currently own. And the idea is to knit those parcels together in a sense, not necessarily completely in terms of ownership, but at any rate, to have a fully sort of functioning Marston Farm, and so that all the parcels are, and all of the owners are on the same page and working together. So anyway, the 128 acre parcel will be a town forest, and currently, as it is, there's no forestry access, no access to get logging trucks and whatever into the town forest. And so the discussion was, what's the best way to do that? And we had that discussion, and we consulted with Charlie Moreno, the town forester, and I believe that we came to an understanding. And then the second reason for meeting was simply to start talking about the conservation easement on the 38 acres, and that's still a work in progress. With the goal of finishing that by September 1 so that we can take advantage of the transaction grant that we have, and also because of the L-chip funding, we need to get this wrapped up as soon as possible. So I think that's the general overview. Kate, do you think there's anything else to add?
Well, forestry access and public access are the two issues. And we're just continuing to try to come to agreement on both of those, I would
Yeah, and I
say.
think we came to an agreement on the forest access, and we're still discussing public access and what that might look like.
Trying to balance various interests. And we don't have time to use the Fish and Game trails planning process, given the timeline. So this is all kind of, it's difficult because it's more of a theoretical discussion at this point.
What, you said you cannot get it in the deed, or what?
Hmm?
The wildlife thing,
What's that?
the wildlife, what you just said.
I said that we
Not
don't
time.
have time to run through the New Hampshire Fish and Game trails planning process before we need to complete the other work. So we're trying to leave some flexibility. So once we understand better the way to design public access to minimize wildlife impact. We can't do that right
Okay,
now, so we're
the-
trying to leave some
Still
flexibility.
looking at public access, and that kind of links into
Yeah.
the wildlife, the trails planning process, the Fish and Game.
Yes,
Okay.
because public access will be via trails, will be via trails, so we don't know where specifically where they're located, because we want to use the Fish and Game process.
But as Kate said, there are multiple competing interests, and it's not, while it would be, in an ideal world, we would use this planning process, there are other considerations, like this is a working farm, that, where public access needs to be carefully considered.
So I would say, Judy, that you could write a book about this, but what Sarita summarized is good, which is, we're still working on public access and trying to balance the various interests. That's how I would summarize it.
Would, not having time to do that planning process now, minimizing wildlife impact, doesn't preclude us from doing that with trails when we go to grade the trails. Right, because we're just talking about access to that back parcel.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about trying to word it in the easement so that it's flexible enough that we could down the road use this planning process potentially. Or at least use that to guide our thinking, but again, knowing that we have these other interests that also have to be taken into account.
That being said, this is like the edge of the last hurdle, I believe. This has been the most complicated project. We did get approval from the ZBA. We did have an approved subdivision from the planning board. So
We got
we're moving
approval from the
closer.
town to,
Hmm?
we got approval from the town to accept the donation. So
Right.
there's been a lot of steps along the way that have
Yes.
fallen into place.
And we got the LCHIP grant, we got other stuff. They got a surprise. I mean, it's just a lot of things have happened. So this is just the last teeny bit of discussion we need to go through.
And getting the easement document in order, which always seems to take time.
Yes.
But we will have it done by the end of June, a final, a good working draft at least.
That's our hope.
At least that's the plan.
Yep.
Okay,
That's our report.
sounds good.
So Judy, there's too many torturous details. It's basically,
I'll send you a copy of what I write, and you can edit
yeah,
it.
okay.
It'll be easier than if you dictate it to me, because I'll get it wrong.
Okay, Judy.
So anyway, I guess the last thing I'll say is, we're trying to finalize the easement soon, so that Giles' attorney has time to look at it over, in July and whatnot. And so, to the extent that anyone is interested in seeing the easement document and reading it, let us know. We're certainly happy to include you in the loop if that's something you'd like to be part of. So. I think we're using the standard easement document that we've developed for other parcels, and so I don't know that it will be substantially different. Do you have anything, would that be a fair statement, Kate?
I think so, yeah, there might be a couple of additions like that fish and game thing, but generally we think it's that way.
Okay. I think our big discussion this evening, or at least the one that we need, I think need to try to make a decision on, is Project 35. And this is the project that Dan talked with us about last time. This joint town project. And, well, and it's the one that we walked, so you both walked that with Dan and myself, and we've seen, has everyone seen the proposal?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess that we wanna decide, what we wanna do, and Eric's not here, but he has, I don't know where to start this, Kate, but I guess, lay some of Eric's concerns out there. Should we start there?
Sure.
So again, we have this large parcel that, that goes all along, what's that road?
Griffin.
Griffin Road, so it has a lot of frontage, it contains that large wetland complex, and it's under WRE easement, which is a pretty restrictive easement, and so we actually, Judy sent that around this week, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but it's a reasonably restrictive easement. And if you recall, it locks basically the back piece, which, is not under easement, and they've been appraised separately, and they have different, different values, and I forget, I think, I'll have to pull the proposal up, but I think Dan is suggesting that the town of Deerfield cover $105,000, about $52,000 to $55,000 per parcel, I think is what that came out to.
I'm sorry, what did you say it was 150?
I think it's 105.
105.
It is.
105,750.
I wanna pull that proposal up, I have it here somewhere.
Judy, you sent around the easement for the NRCS easement this week? I don't think I was on that.
Yeah,
email.
it's possible that not everyone was on that
me
email,
look.
so Kate or someone can send that around while I'm looking for the proposal. I also have a call in to NRCS to get some clarification on the easement document and what is and isn't allowed. So Eric has one of these easements on his property, and he seems to think that they're fairly restrictive, and that the only way you can request particular allowable uses, but if the landowner hasn't done that, it's a process that you have to go through. And so, for example, if someone, either the town, if we were to purchase this property, or someone else wanted to obtain a right-of-way to access that back property for forest management, that would have to be requested by NRCS, and there's no guarantee that it would be granted.
Right.
Particularly if it was deemed disruptive to that wetland. So I think Eric's feeling is that, well, first of all, the parcel's already the larger parcel with the road frontage is already under a restrictive easement. That parcel itself probably cannot be, it can't be built on, it can't be, forest management can't be done, those sorts of things. I think Eric's feeling is that that's not the place for us to spend our hard-earned cash, so to speak, or, our limited funds, and that, if we felt that it was important to protect that back parcel, then that might be where we put our money. And right now, the proposal is that our portion would be 55,000 for that. I think, and there's a substantial landowner contribution.
And then access would be through the Hartown Forest in that case?
Well, so that's a question, so I guess it depends whether, what would happen to that WRP piece. I'd like to see the landowner donate it to the town personally, and then it could all be one piece, and then we could request a right-of-way if we needed to access that back property from NRCS. If it went to a third party, then if we wanted to access that, we'd either have to access it through Epsom, through their town forest, or through the Hart, or we'd have to negotiate something with that landowner and then get permission from the NRCS.
Is that NRCS easement parcel the only potential parcel we could get a right-of-way on, or is there some, like, I'm just wondering, like, say we don't take action on either piece, is there any way that this currently landlocked piece gets developed?
Well, if someone buys both of them together, like a third party,
Right.
like a
Right,
private
right, right.
party buys both of those together, and then they could request from the NRCS access to cross that WRP easement. And the call that I have into NRCS is to ask what that process might look like. And
Is that to to Brooke Smart, or is that?
Sue Knight is the WRP person, apparently.
I'm just wondering, do we know what's to the south here? Did we ever find that out?
I have it on the tax map.
Olson Villeneuve.
But that doesn't abut, and then Dan said it might just be because his map is off, right? And then we,
Well, the two Barton, you got the two Bartons
Two
next to each other.
Bartons.
One in,
The two parcels were
the two
discussed.
parcels,
parcels.
then there's a
and
gap.
then there's 9. Number 9
I don't know, this map doesn't have to.
is Olson
parcel numbers
Villeneuve.
on it.
We've asked multiple times. I haven't
Right.
seen an updated map.
Me either, because that's, I mean, that, I don't know what that looks like here.
Correct.
So.
I have this big one.
But I guess I've been thinking about it a bit, and I'm currently on a similar page as Eric, where I feel that, you know, unless we decided, the only reason I can see to invest in these parcels is if we feel like recreation and public access is a priority. And I think there's argument for that, at least for that back parcel, because it does create this large block of potentially conserved land, a lot of which already has recreational access, would be tying into an existing infrastructure and wouldn't have to start from scratch,
From
but
the Epsom side.
from the Epsom side, and, but that NRCS easement parcel, I can't justify in my head spending the dollars on it
I think it abuts.
when, because I know NRCS
It goes
easements,
like that,
and
and there's that funny
you're
parcel
not doing
there.
anything without asking them, and that's
Yeah.
a
Goes that way.
beautiful wetland that they're not gonna let you do much around, so.
Yeah, and apparently, according to Eric, even if the current landowner were to get permission to do something, it dies with that landowner, and then the new landowner has to go
Right.
through that process again, and so,
Right, so even though they currently have a bridge and,
but the apparent, well, as far as
Sure.
we know, there is no right-of-way access across that property. So, but even if they did, apparently that would expire with that landowner. And even if, according to Eric, it's only, each of these allowances are only for a certain time period, and they expire and then have to be renewed or whatnot. So it's possible. It's not that it's not possible, but it's not automatic.
right.
Have you referenced Dan's recent discussion that the easement is subject to compatible use authorization, which is routinely issued?
Well, that's what we're talking about, and it's funny, I think Dan's coming at it from the opposite angle. I think he's thinking that we might want to get compatible use authorization to do forest management on the back piece, and so he's trying to say, that you can do this routinely.
Right.
Whereas
we
we're
wanna make
coming-
sure it doesn't.
Whereas we don't want it to happen, and Eric, who actually has one of these and is working with NRCS currently to get this compatible use authorization, says that it's not straightforward, and it isn't necessarily guaranteed, and it's not necessarily simple, so,
Right, and on that NRCS piece, I mean, we would want some sort of conditional, I mean, I shouldn't say we, I shouldn't put words in anyone else's mouth, but if we were to acquire that property, for me, it would be important to have some sort of parking area and public access and recreation, minor as it might be, just to access the rest of the system that we're tying into. And if that conditional use was gonna be difficult to acquire, that's another battle. And then it wouldn't make sense.
yeah, so I want, I called the NRCS woman today, and I didn't hear back from her, so I'll keep trying, but, I guess the other issue is, the WRP piece, if it's, if we were to propose purchasing the back parcel, I don't think that WRP piece, given the restrictions, is a very attractive parcel to someone. And so, to me, it's better suited as a donation to the town, for the tax benefit or whatever. And that's what I would like to, have the landowner consider.
I will say that just to confirm this, when we did the site visit, there was a place to go in where there was a gate and would appear to be a forestry landing. Am I correct?
Yep.
But just to confirm, the entire parcel, all the acreage is completely within the Wetlands Reserve Program, right? There's no possibility for any structure anywhere on that property?
Or forest management at this time, as far as I know, without special permission from the NRCS.
Yeah, and typically those WRE easements, they'll allow for forestry, but only if it complies with the goals of that easement, which in most cases is turtles or, the wetland habitat in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ends up being very limited.
Okay,
If
because I don't have any
that parcel
experience, but
is
that's helpful.
wetland, I mean, is there even a lot there to manage forest-wise?
Right.
And
I
so
just-
that landing may have been to access that back property at some time in the
It
past.
might have been because that back property is pretty sloped, and so if you're gonna take stuff out of there, that's one of the closest flat surfaces, I would imagine.
That's exactly right, and I've been trying to reach the town forester to get more information on that, but like Sarita, we're still on hold.
What is the business with the access? The right of access for ingress and egress to the Wetland Reserve Program easement for Alan Barton described in Exhibit A will be from Griffin Road, a public road which is immediately adjacent to the easement area.
Don't say the name.
Pardon me?
It's property 31. Project 31. We're saying don't.
35.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, so your question is?
So it does highlight
Well,
access
I mean-
in the deed.
Well, they have access to that
To that
property
property,
from
yeah.
Griffin Road, but we're talking about across that to
Okay,
another
so
property.
across to another property. Okay.
Correct. That's right.
And it does have, there are rights of way to that center Deerfield property as well. One. And then there are two properties, or three, I'm not quite sure, reading it over and over again, of unknown,
Does it not
Yeah.
exist?
uncertain
Okay.
ownership. So there's right of way across it to those.
And then Hart.
Oh, to those little in holdings, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good then.
to these
seems like it's
areas
contiguous.
here. So this is not in easement, but there is right of way to it. But I don't think,
Yeah.
this
that is
doesn't,
cool.
isn't close enough
The Franconia Ridge.
Mhm.
to this property, original lot 2, original lot 1. Well, I wonder. I'm not quite sure where this comes in, the non-easement and right-of-way, if there would be any possibility that it actually reaches as far as lot 1.
Well, according to the map that Dan showed us, by lot 1, you mean the
This one here.
The back piece.
The back piece, yeah, the
According
back
to the
land.
map that Dan showed us, there is no, it's completely landlocked and there
completely
is no
landlocked.
access.
Other than, yeah, but I'm, yeah.
Yeah, Ben just looked it up again, and I think that's correct.
So the right of way would not extend far enough to get that far, to get to, as far as lot one, no.
That's our understanding. And I don't know who would want to go into that little unknown, that little parcel of unknown identity.
Oh, I guess the point I was making was if there's a right of way across the wetland, to get to that, to those pieces, if it was close enough.
Well, NRCS would never let anyone do forest management across the wetland anyway, regardless of whether there's right of way to some unknowns.
That is what we hope.
Well, my understanding,
We fervently pray.
well, I guess based on Eric's experience with these easements,
Yes.
is all we have to go on, right?
That's right.
So-
Yeah, and so I'm glad, it sounds like, Haley, you have had some experience with the Wetland Reserve Program.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a colleague over there, who puts these easements into place. So you might try getting in touch with her as well if you don't hear back from Sue Knight.
What's this other person's name?
Brooke Smart.
Smart?
Yep.
Brooke? Is
Um,
she also in the Dover office?
Yes. And she, just insinuated they're very restrictive, and I've, kind of asked, well, why would anyone, including the town, have any interest in purchasing this? If it's already, if it's conserved in perpetuity and that's it. And, that conversation kind of brought me to the point we're at, which is, only if we decide that public access and recreation on that particular parcel is a priority, would I think about putting dollars towards it. But I think even without that parcel, investing in the back parcel, again, ties into this really great network of recreation that already exists. So we're kind of,
And it links to that piece that is under wetland reserve, which is effectively already tied up. I mean, it's already
yes, tied up, but not open to the public
That's true.
currently. So
That's
so again, that's the only difference. And I kind of like Sarita's proposal where we think about purchasing this back piece and hope that that gesture results in a donation of the front piece. I mean, you can be hopeful. And even if that doesn't work out, if someone does purchase that in the future, perhaps there's someone who would be open to public access. And I think that's all you can hope for.
And just for Judy to correct the record, this was Eric's proposal, but not that it's
Yes.
that important, but, can someone, I don't know how important this is, but I'm just curious, what kind of buyer would find this attractive? Because to me, that speaks to whether we would, it seems like we would only want to invest in it if it's gonna be really attractive to another buyer who would then be able to do something with it that's
Right.
that's counter to the, to that property or what we would like to see happen there. But again, it already has this fairly restrictive easement on it, so I guess I just wonder how attractive it's gonna be.
I mean, again, and this was not a very in-depth conversation, so I think it warrants an additional conversation, but, the conversation I had with my colleague at NRCS was, basically that, it's not gonna be a developer, because there's no potential room for development there, and within the easement language, and that it really would have to be someone who was just interested in, like, having a lot of space to play. So I don't know if someone.
Without the ability to build a structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, that's a unique person in my mind. I mean,
Right.
if I had all the dollars in the world, I too would love a big space to play, but, I think that's a unique.
A funny way to play, too, because you'd have to have good wading boots for the splashing. You'd
But
have to like to be a kid being in big puddles.
Yeah.
Suppose if you were really into waterfowl, I mean, you can.
Right, yeah,
certainly
you could
put,
think some
like a
bunting, yeah.
blind out there,
Yeah.
or, those sorts of structures, if you get permission from NRCS, so. But anyway, okay, I think that's the important point that needs to be made here. So, what how do other people feel about this proposal to, purchase, or at least propose to purchase, assuming that the L-CHIP funding, so this is gonna be an L-CHIP project, right? So assuming L-CHIP goes forward and all of that, how do people feel about this proposal? For the
I-
back piece?
Yeah, I'd like to just put it in context and say that overall, this is a big project, and there's been a lot of work put into it by Bear Paw. And it's a very, very, very important area of town.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an opportunity to have a two-town initiative. So, in that context, it would be wonderful if the Conservation Commission had dollars pouring out of all of our pockets so we could really participate fully, but we can't do that. And we've been struggling with this for months.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the proposal you've come up with is that benefited from all the research, all the thinking, all the discussion. And it seems, we hope, understandable in context of our limitation and what we can do, and try to be prudent stewards of the town's
Mhm.
finances.
Thank you, Kate, that's well put. Eric had suggested that we perhaps offer something lower than what's in the proposal. I think my sense is that that is already well below the appraised value for that back property, so especially if we would like to, garner support for this idea of a donation of the WRP parcel, it's not in our interest, I think, to offer less than what this proposal proposes.
I agree.
I think actually that, I was talking with Eric on Saturday about this. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I tend to think of both of them together. But yeah, the idea of purchasing one that's already conserved and, again, has probably basically zero pressure. Just seems maybe not entirely prudent, given our mission. But I did finally get out and hike on the Epsom side.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Were you able to get all the way over to the Deerfield line?
Well, I got to the top of Neville Peak, which I
Uh-huh.
think is like right across the line.
Are there trails back on that side?
Yeah, oh yeah. I couldn't quite make out Mount Washington, but I could make out Franconia Ridge, and
Hmm.
so you could see for almost 100 miles. It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Um,
So you went to that parking area on the Epsom side that
Yep.
we talked about last time, or whatever it was?
Yep,
Okay.
I took Echo Valley Road to Mountain Road to there's another T Road. Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense.
Two nuts
To focus on the
on the
one
one,
unconserved parcel that is part of the
Contiguous,
contiguous.
yeah,
okay.
backland, okay.
Right, and that would be great if we could get a donation of the other part.
Yeah. And, as much as that might be wishful thinking, I would just point out that it will also really strengthen an L-chip proposal if there's a donation at play, as well as
That's true.
financial support from two towns. And so that might be incentive for the landowner, like in order to get this whole package through and get the L-chip match that the towns need to make it happen. That donation would make a big difference, I think,
That's a good point.
especially working off the full appraisal price of that
You're
parcel.
talking about the donation of the WRP?
Yeah.
Well, right, and, anecdotally, it sounds like we've heard that he did okay with that property.
Yes.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yes.
It's probably an understatement.
I mean, not that necessarily means anything, but
I think in this context, I think it does mean something.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, actually, but
We
Okay.
good? Are
Is anyone opposed to that? Because if everyone's in agreement, then I will email Dan with that suggestion.
yeah, I think that's good.
I think
It's
what
time
Haley
to-
added on there is more than a maraschino cherry. That's a big lever.
Mhm.
That's a great comment. I also would like to say, again, stepping way back, that I don't know when we started this conversation, probably your notes show, but we have really been wrestling with this for a while and trying to get additional understanding and taking our time and trying to be very thorough, and it's not off the cuff. And so I just want to say it's a real pleasure dealing with everybody while we kind of work through this. Not obvious, easy answer, but I think we're coming to a good place, in my opinion. Whatever happens, it's been a great process.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, everybody. That was a good discussion, as Kate said. Okay, so we're gonna move, so we actually, just a quick update on Boyceford, I don't think there's much to say here. We're still working on the easement. Kate and Eric have been going back and forth a little bit on parking. I don't know to what extent everyone's been following that, and I don't know, Kate, if you have something to add.
I
but,
do, I have spent some time, also Haley did weigh on this in a very helpful way as well. The issue, I actually, looked very carefully at the issue of parking, and our language to date, I think, does not fit this circumstance. There's no way to get a parking lot anywhere near this property. So the issue of parking, I would suggest, and the reason I got into this conversation in the first part, but it kind of got lost in the discussion, is that there is an existing Fish and Game piece with a true and intervening parcel we don't own, which hopefully someday we will, that has parking and access to the east, and the only other option is to the south, and there's a town road and no place for parking, and there's a bunch of cranky abutters. And we do not want to have public driving all the way up along the town line and into the actual parcel. I can guarantee you, we don't want vehicle access that far in to an otherwise unfragmented area. It's just not good practice.
Can I see your map?
And have you followed up with Eric on that point?
Well, I agreed in principle with the idea of parking, but I guess reserving the right means we don't have to solve the problem right now. But the reason I started thinking about it in the first place is if I had a magic wand, we would use the Fish and Game newly developed, lovely access from the east, and be able to negotiate acquisition of the Green Crow parcel, at which point all of this would just fall into place beautifully.
Well, so does that then speak to Eric's point of having it, even if we don't have access now, having the possibility of that in the future, should these other things fall into place?
Well, that means we would just dump right into the existing Fish and Game parking lot, which is already developed,
Oh, I see, you're saying it's already there.
and it would be shared, which is my, given the location, would be my preference, is to minimize the built infrastructure, the additional activity and fragmentation in that area, and kind of build on what Fish and Game was already. They've actually moved their parking lot out from farther in and pulled it back closer to the top of the Browns Mill subdivision. They put a gate across because they don't want motorized access that far back.
Well, so can you respond to Eric's email then with this information?
I think I really need to talk to him about it. I don't know if he's been out there. I don't really know what he knows in terms of the parcel itself. I've spent a lot of time out there, and
Have you talked to Frank? Frank spent a lot of time out there.
yeah, actually I haven't. That's a good idea, but I think I know what he'd say.
Can you talk to Eric? Because we need to resolve this and move on, I
Well,
think.
we do, but here's the thing I was thinking, and what the email I sent today is, we could always reserve the right, doesn't mean we have to use
I
it.
guess that was my argument in opening that can of worms, was,
Correct.
you know, once you give up that reserve, or don't take advantage of that reserved right, it's gone. And so,
Correct.
we just don't know how situations are gonna change in the future in terms of some of these parcels, and so
Absolutely, and
why
that's-
not?
That it's not committing to
Yeah.
it, it's just reserving the right. So is a reserved right, so that's why I was saying it made sense. But I just wanted people to know the reason I opened the can of worms in the first place is because practically, I don't see any way to exercise that right.
At the
and-
moment.
And even in the future, and it's my hope that it would go away and we could just cooperate with the Fish and Game existing access.
That's Corey, is Fish and Game property, or is
Mhm.
that, yeah?
Yes.
So having it, so assuming that, well, there's two ways to look at this, but, so the simple thing is just to leave it in case in the future we want to have that right, but knowing that there's very little likelihood that we would ever exercise that right, because there really is no place to put it.
Correct, but we'd have to significantly change the sort of boilerplate language we have about parking, because we can't use the wording that we always use, because this parcel's too far away from everywhere. We'd have to make it just very vague.
Well, so can you and Eric work on that language and come to an agreement on that?
Maybe Dan has some really basic.
I think right now, the only direct access we have, and it's very funky, is from Swamp Road. So I think I can work on some very vague language, a couple sentences, and just say, the town reserves the right to provide access from the southwest corner at some point in the future.
Okay.
Just leave it at that.
Just something that suits everybody.
Yep. And then the other thing I do want to talk to people about this, which is the issue of public access. I don't know, this, and maybe I've crossed my wires in my own brain because there's too much going on, but the issue of public access, I'm not sure why this explicitly needs to be in the conservation easement. Like, for instance, in the Marston L-chip easement, there is a section 4 that says the affirmative right of public access, okay? And that is a paragraph that's very specific to the L-chip process. And I don't know if that's what Derek's talking about, but our conservation purposes G says the preservation of the property for outdoor educational or recreational use by the general public. So for me, that sort of assumes public access, but maybe I'm missing something.
I guess I'm missing the context, so Eric wants something different than what's in there
I think he does.
in terms of public access.
Mhm.
Can you just talk with him on the phone so that you guys can get this sorted out?
Sure. And the last thing, this is the easy part, so I saved this for last. You are absolutely right, which is I looked up the language for locating trails and I put some new language in. So I added, and see if that makes sense to you, the stuff in red, which is the fishing game methodology or other equivalent science-based. Does that work?
Yeah, or
Language.
however they,
Hmm?
like, what do they say for, or similar successor publications? That's like what they say for the trail maintenance guy, you know what I mean? Because we don't know, like, good forestry in the Granite State is always gonna be the thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, true for this one as well. So, yeah, I think that's fine.
Is that language okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give that out to her. You don't have to worry, Judy. I'll shoot that around to everybody. And just to check, I also promised that I would send a copy of this. This is a little confusing, but I want to make sure it's okay with the Conservation Commission. Sarita and I have been in contact with Stephen Walker, who is the LCIP stewardship coordinator. And we are, as part of Marston, updating the 1991 LCIP easement to the 21st century. And so, with the permission, if people are okay with this phrase I just added, I would send Stephen Walker, I told him I would talk to you guys, and then if it's okay with you, I would send him our language about locating trails. So is that all right with the Conservation Commission?
Yes, please.
What I did is I took the stuff that I got from the Southeast Land Trust, and I took away a lot of the legal stuff and made it much more civilian-based. So we'll see if he likes it or not. Stephen does, but I try to make it clear.
You're going to ask him for permission to add that? Is that what you're saying?
No.
No,
I
you're
want to
just-
give it to him as an example of what we're talking about, so he is aware of it.
Okay, and is there an ongoing effort now to get that into the Marston easement?
Oh, yeah.
The trail language?
Yeah.
Okay, so you are working on that.
Yep. Yes.
I think that's what you're referring to, right, Kate? That this would go into the easement for the 128
Correct.
acres.
Yes,
It's part of the Marston project.
correct. And that by necessity, then, it also involves the 38 acres, because we need to go through the 38 to get to the 128. Even using the little teeny western access doesn't eliminate the need for, I think, use of the 38 acres, just topographically.
Yeah, except that LCIP doesn't have anything to do with the 38 acres. Okay.
All right.
Anything else on that?
So I will talk to Eric.
That would be great.
Sorry, Sarita, I know you want this done. I know I'm frustrating you, but slow is good.
Okay.
Any of this stuff that's in perpetuity, good to let it compost.
I guess when there's no deadline hanging over our head, it doesn't matter.
It does. I'm sick of it too, but we gotta get it right.
It'd be nice if I didn't have to say when the Boisvert deed goes through, and when I do the town report this year.
Well, we're definitely on the
That's a good
3-year
goal, Judy.
time
Yeah.
plan, like with freeze, but whatever, it's fine. Okay, let's get some regular business, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes for May 14th.
Seconded.
Ben seconds, is there any discussion?
I was not here, so I abstain.
Well, have you looked? They're so fun. You looked at them?
I did look at them.
They're 6 pages, though.
Pretty well.
Just a good one.
Is that for the record, or
What?
do you have any changes?
Visible.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 1 abstention. I actually did not remember to ask Eric for a finance report. I don't know if you have got anything from him.
I didn't get anything from him, no. I thought he said that he was going to provide one, and I didn't want to bug him about it. I figured it.
Yeah, he usually does. He probably
Send it.
forgot. So we'll get that next week, next month. I think well, as we hear every month, he's having trouble getting reports from the town. So I'm not sure he had much of an update anyway. Under regulated wetlands, we have 2 items, Ritchie Road resident concerns and the Eversource CUP permit.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, can you remind us what the Ritchie Road resident concerns are regarding?
A resident on Pleasant Lake, there is a parcel that is owned by a private individual who is intending to put a garage or repair shop on the parcel, and the residents are concerned about maintaining the integrity of Pleasant Lake.
That's right, and they contacted us, and I think we directed them to either the planning board or the zoning board, right? Because there was gonna
Right.
be a public hearing about that.
Yes.
Okay, did that come to the planning board?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you
And there
know.
was a site visit on Sunday.
Okay, is there anything that you wanna say for the DCC, or it's not necessary?
I did not go to the site visit. I think that the central issue for the residents, there's a lot of permeable areas, a lot of sand. It's called Sand Pit Road, part of it. And I think there's a concern by the residents for incompatible uses, and I'm not, except for groundwater impact, I don't know if there's direct Conservation Commission input.
Okay.
But I would think the planning board has to look at, we have a groundwater protection zone, so they need to include that too.
Okay,
There were many residents at the site visit, I understand,
you say there were.
yes.
And there also was a public hearing, is that correct?
Yes, there was, and it was continued till after the site visit.
But there were a good number of,
Very number of, good
okay,
number of
so
people.
it sounds like there is a process, and that is making its way through the system, as it were.
Yes, on the
Okay,
planning board side.
all right. Do you have anything that you would like to say about the the Eversource CUP permit application process?
Yes, conditional use permit, I certainly do. So today, this morning, most of the morning, I spent with David Price, who is the New Hampshire DES land management representative out of Pease, Matthew Carden from Eversource, Dave Duran from the planning board was there, and also Jim Page, who's a volunteer who knows a lot about utility management. And I think we had a productive conversation about the frustrations of past Eversource practices. One of the things that came out of that meeting is that there are at least 3 main areas where Eversource is impacting right-of-ways in Deerfield. One is the transmission right-of-ways, which is where they're taking poles in and out and doing replacement structures. The second is called land clearing, which has happened a lot around the substation. And the third is something called vegetative management, where they come through with these big machines called Brontosaurus and keep the vegetation low in the right-of-way. The reason it's relevant is all 3 have had significant environmental impacts, both in terms of wetlands and wildlife in the past. And our understanding is that because of the projected substantial increase in construction in the right-of-ways over the next few years, due to a variety of upgrades for a variety of reasons, we're really, DES and the Conservation Commission, and I would say the Planning Board, are all trying to get an improved process of communication and project management with Eversource. And I think this was the first of several meetings to try to accomplish that. For perspective, one of the things I learned today, but I didn't understand before, is that most of these programs were relatively sleepy and not very active, and they were quite pro forma for a long time. There's something called the utility maintenance notification, where most of this work got done. It was handled by a person at DES, and it was totally automatic. They just filed in January where they're going to be moving anytime during the year, and nobody looked. But it wasn't a very active program. That's really changing. So DES and Deerfield, I think, are leading the way, working with Eversource to try to improve both communication and project management, especially around the issue of accountability. Because frankly, right now, the current Eversource position is that there's sometimes issues with contractors and sometimes not, but it's not clear who's in charge of the project. So we're working on communication issues. I have gotten an email from Matthew Carden from Eversource. It came in late, haven't reviewed it, so I don't think it's fair to talk about it right now, but I'll certainly have it for the conditional use permit discussion, which happens on Wednesday at Planning Board. So if anybody wants to come, you're totally invited.
What did he send you? Oh, just another communication, did you say? Or what did he send you that you
An
haven't
email,
read?
and I forwarded
Oh,
you a
just-
copy.
Okay.
Haven't looked at it yet.
The one from,
The Eversource guy, as a result of our meeting today, he sent a summary email.
not the May 23rd thing. You're not talking about
No,
that.
this came
No.
in,
Today, like right before the meeting, I would say.
right, exactly.
Okay, so I don't have a copy of that then.
I emailed it to you, but I think you were already here,
Okay.
knowing you. And it's just for your files at this point. It's mostly relevant to the meeting on Wednesday with the planning board.
The upcoming.
Conditional, it's part of the conditional use permit. So basically, we're all on a learning curve.
Okay, thanks,
Oh,
Kate.
one other thing. Judy has a picture. This is so awesome. totally serendipitously, circumstantially, cosmically, which happens a lot in my life, we five are walking down the road from Kate Road toward the most recent bad job by Eversource. There, in the middle of the road, the sandy road, is a painted turtle hatchling saying, "Don't step on me, don't run me over." And so I asked the Eversource guy, so if you guys were working here, was there anybody doing a turtle sweep before your equipment came in? He said, no, that's not a rare, threatened, or endangered species, so it's not our job.
Oh, is that what RTE is?
Rare, threatened, and endangered, yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't have time to try to figure this out.
So they
So
what, they would run it over?
they wouldn't be looking, they wouldn't care. That's what he said. So now I'm remembering, foolish me, I am pleading with
Oh, right.
Conservation Commission, totally forgot this part, to have the Conservation Commission, through Sarita, send to the planning board for Wednesday a little letter saying that, in fact, we highly recommend that a wildlife monitor be present on the site and do trained monitor, do field sweeps before any work is done. Even though the work's in July, still could be turtle nesting in the area. And also black racers, because the sites they're moving into have 2 potential rare, threatened, and endangered species, which I will not mention on tape, but there's 2 of them.
Would you like to see this on official
Yes,
letterhead?
yes.
And
Signed in gold.
And who does it go to?
I would say Pete Schibelhoot, Chair of the Planning Board.
Before Wednesday.
Mhm.
And are you right at this moment, or at another time, gonna give me sort of more context and specific language? I mean, that's like one sentence.
Yes,
Okay.
as long as I have approval from the Conservation Commission to send this letter.
Yes, please.
Are you
So,
recommending it year-round or just during nesting season?
well, I don't know. That's what I sent out an email saying suggestions welcome.
Well,
There
you're
are 2
suggesting they're gonna work in July, and that may be outside of nesting season, so I
For
think.
turtles, but there's
Not all
also,
turtles, yeah.
like,
Painted turtles will nest again. They'll nest twice sometimes.
right,
Yes, I think she is saying anytime they're out there, right?
that's my feeling. Plus, one is another species is a snake. And it turns out that they often have dens in the vicinity of some of these structures.
Yeah, I guess I just meant if they're doing work in October, you know. Do they have to have a wildlife monitor on site as well?
Well, here's the deal. Here's my experience on that, and that's why I'm looking for, my
I'm
feeling.
not saying one way or the other,
No,
just curious, yeah.
last year I found a painted turtle hatchling moving in November.
Yeah,
And a friend of mine drove into my house at Thanksgiving a couple years ago and drove over a turtle nest, revealing 5 turtles, hatchlings there, who were viable but not moving. So we picked them up and tried to save them, brought them to a turtle place. So my point is that I don't think that there's a time of year when any of this activity doesn't have the potential to impact a variety of species, is my feeling. And I will say one other thing, which you may or may not have had a chance to read, but the other cosmically amazing thing is very early this morning, right before I went out to meet these guys, I got an email from one of my colleagues talking about what's happening in Massachusetts, where it turns out that Eversource does training for all of their employees because it's required under Massachusetts law for them to do training on turtle protection in Massachusetts. They got to do it. And there's been a,
Sense was when that came up today that was, how would I put that? How would you put that?
well, it's required by mass rules.
I know, but when you brought that up, to Eversource on the site visit, here's what's happening in Massachusetts, the comment was, well, that's Massachusetts.
Correct. That's right, but since then, I've sent that around to a bunch of my colleagues here, and people point out that turtles don't pay attention to state lines, they're regionally occurring. So I don't think there's anything wrong personally with encouraging Eversource voluntarily to follow the same practices they're training people to do in Massachusetts at a
Well, that,
minimum.
I think, is the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous statement, is my point, to say that, well, that's Massachusetts.
Yes, there were a number of statements that I would characterize that way, and I'm very happy that I stayed level. So, I guess this is a little, perhaps confused, but maybe what I'm asking for the Conservation Commission is the okay for Sarita and I to craft a letter that reflects the need for monitoring. And I just wanted to check with you guys, especially you, Haley, about when is a reasonable time for monitoring. But based on my experience,
Yeah, no, I agree with you, especially the last few
Hatchlings.
years, yeah,
hatchlings show up anytime.
yeah. No, I think it's totally warranted, I just wasn't sure what you were proposing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've always felt that time of year restrictions are sort of crazy, because there's no wildlife I know, except deer, that know when hunting season starts. Other than that, they generally don't watch the calendar, is my experience.
they don't read the field guides, we say.
So your letter just generally to request
Yeah.
that they voluntarily follow some of the mass protections and,
Well, they do
And I
the,
would also just point out that even though, there's no rare, threatened, or endangered species on site necessarily, on the sites they're working on, you know, that we are in the stronghold of some of the, or, you know, Deerfield is a stronghold for some populations of rare, threatened, and endangered reptiles and amphibians, so it behooves us to, just because Natural Heritage Bureau doesn't know they're there, doesn't mean they're not there.
well, in this case, for these two sites, this is their second conditional use permit. The first one, there were no rare, threatened, or endangered reported by Natural Heritage. This one, there's two.
Right.
So it's extra special.
Yeah, wildlife move.
Right.
Sometimes they come indoors.
As well as having invasive species, which is something else they're saying they have no requirement to deal with. So that's a separate topic. But anyhow, it is amazing that just circumstantially, a little painted shows up while we're walking. And then I get this other thing with quite a detail about the level of training that happens with protocol and procedures for their employees. So we want to try to build on that, I guess, is my summary. And I'm sorry I'm so long-winded about it.
No, it's good. Thanks for your work on it, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
I think I'm discharging a little because I was trying to be restrained during my meeting. The only thing else I'll say is that we did write that memo from May, what was that, 15th? And we did get a letter, quite a detailed letter back from Eversource on May 23rd. And I have to say that their answers are quite disappointing, and I hope will be improved by Wednesday. And I think we did a good job with our issues.
Did you, or can you share that letter?
I
Or
thought,
do you have it digitally, or is it just a paper?
yes, I thought I passed it around to everybody, but I may not have. Okay. But one of the points is any old flagging is removed and fresh flagging clearly delineating is posted, and then that was your idea, so that's in there.
so do we need to send this around?
I will send it around,
Send it, okay,
if I haven't.
thank you.
Okay, so we are down, I believe, to announcements, correspondence, and reminders. It looks like Judy has put something there related to the Rockingham County Conservation District. There is a free invasive plant management
It's a pilot program.
pilot project.
Project,
Let's
okay.
see. Excuse me. you want me to read this, or how do
I,
we wanna-
I copied the highway department on that, by the way.
So this is free invasive plant management on municipal working lands pilot project. It's a very long title. The Rockingham County Conservation District requests letters or emails of interest from towns interested in having their town working lands evaluated for invasive plant species. Selected towns will have their sites evaluated and plans developed with municipal input to prevent the spread of invasive vegetation. Optional herbicide application on up to 1 acre of invasive vegetation will be offered as one of the initial steps in management if appropriate. All services area funded by a grant from the Department of Ag, Markets and Foods and are offered at no cost to towns and municipalities. I'm sorry, some of the writing is very unclear. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. 3 to 5 towns will be selected for the initial pilot program, but all letters of interest will be used to evaluate appropriate funding levels for continuation of the program. Road rights-of-ways, town forests, and conservation lands do not qualify. But it says town working lands, so I don't know what's a town working land?
Who's
Working
writing
land
this?
is-
Who's writing this?
This is the Rockingham County Conservation District.
Is there a contact person?
Municipal working land, okay, here they define it in the first sentence, I should have read that. Municipal, I was trying to get to the heart of it. Municipal working lands such as stump dumps, fill stockpiles, transfer stations, and town sheds are often habitats favorable to the growth of invasive vegetation. These invasive species may then be spread to nearby habitats via natural dispersal or may be spread more widely through human activities such as the transfer of fill. So it does, so you did pass this on to the,
To highway.
okay, so
Yeah.
it sounds like they would need to put this letter of intent or letter of request or letter of interest, they would need to submit that. Does that sound is that what everyone else is hearing?
Yeah.
Does anyone know of any situation where this would be applicable in town,
Not in our town.
in our town?
I've seen other towns where like their fill station is, you can see little Japanese knotweed sprouts popping out of the top of the pile, but I have yet to see that.
Oh, let's hope that
Yeah.
never
It's
comes to
popping out.
Deerfield.
So, like
We-
Japanese knotweed
Oh,
sprouts.
Japanese,
Can I see that?
okay.
Siri?
Yeah. So I guess that's an FYI, and it sounds like Judy's done just what needed to be done, which is passing that on to the highway agent.
I think, the woman on this letter lives in Deerfield,
Who was that?
Ariana Spear.
Who?
Ariana Spear. I don't know her, but I know Lenny Lord, who's also on this email and was out in the field with him last week. And he told me that, he said, Ariana Spear lives in Deerfield. They just hired her recently. She was an intern for them or something. So
Wow.
anyways, so that's something to
Cool.
know, I
So
guess.
maybe she'll be in touch directly then with the town.
Yeah, or maybe she's aware of something we're not aware of. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that's an FYI. One other quick announcement. So we have this project funded by the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions that allowed the Conservation Commission to pair with Ellen O'Donnell, our 7th and 8th grade science teacher. And the school year's coming to an end, and the final presentations are, I believe, next week in Stratham. That's, I think, Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30, should anyone wish to attend. I guess as the contact, the person that's been working with Ellen on this, I will try to attend, though I can't at this moment guarantee that I will, but I will make every effort to do that and report back next time. So, again, just an FYI.
In Stratham?
in Stratham, yeah. At the
Okay.
Stratham.
Is that where NHACC is?
No, they just
a
tried to
headquarters?
find one of the partner organization,
Hmm.
one of the groups that
Okay.
had a location, and it was at the Deerfield School in the fall, when they
Oh.
kicked everything off, and so I think they're just trying to spread it around, and so the, elementary school in Stratham offered their space as a meeting location.
I see.
Ellen had proposed a bunch of us going into the classrooms.
Yeah.
I never heard from her, so I just wanna, make that known, I guess.
Yeah, and I followed up with her and said, you know, we're still willing to do that.
Well, I
and-
find things get busy, I just.
And I
yeah.
didn't hear back either. She's retiring at the end of this year. I think she's probably
Yeah.
beyond busy and just doesn't have time,
Yeah.
so. So
I
I'm
don't think we
assuming-
should let her retire personally.
Well, it is unfortunate since my daughter was looking forward to having her
Mhm.
next year, so it is kind of sad, but. Okay, any other announcements?
Um, I have a couple very quick updates, which I just as soon have in the minutes, very, very quick. One is that we've talked about Quarry and Fish and Game and Brown's Mill. I am still working with the attorney for the developer of the Browns Mill subdivision because it seems that somehow, in a way that I'm not sure how, they got their signed approval from the planning board without having completed the agreed-upon hydroseeding of warm season grasses in the form of gravel pit. So I'm still working with her to see if there's a chance they'll do that, even though they already have their approval. Okay, that's just
So
for the
you
record.
got, they got their approval from the planning board without the seeding?
Required-
Without the required
Without the
seeding?
required hydroseeding of the former gravel pit. So I'm working with the attorney, who I have very much enjoyed working with, to try to see if we can get that to happen.
And that was required through who?
Planning board is part of the subdivision. It's an open space subdivision.
So they were gonna hydro, oh, excuse me.
Well, it's just, I don't understand, because the planning board required it, but they still approved it.
They signed the plan without the work being done.
I see,
or
so
the
the idea was that
bond
they wouldn't sign the plan until the work was done, but then they did sign the plan.
One of the conditions was that they were supposed to provide, the applicant was to provide a performance bond and an agreement to get the work done. We had a quote. The plan got signed, but the work never got done.
See.
So they were gonna hydroseed the gravel pit? I thought Fish and Game was gonna do something with that.
Oh, no, this is a wonderful work of art, this project. What's happening is that Fish and Game recommended, instead of the typical,
Yeah, I remember that,
treatment.
but then when you're saying hydroseeding,
with warm season grasses. It's a
Okay.
very small project, it's not a lot of money. I've already spoken to the company who gave the quote, they did not do the work. It's just to finish a project that was supposed to have been done right, and it's not yet done right. So I'm after it, because it should be done right.
well, have they completed that deed yet? Because I'm still waiting on that for the last couple of years.
I can't tell you. Don't know.
That's part of that's required. As part of the subdivision.
Well, you mean, we
The easement.
completed, you mean, has it
The
been
eas-
recorded?
The easement deed.
Yeah, is the
Is
easement deed,
anything- It's done? No. Has their attorney recorded the easement deed?
oh, yes, I believe so,
She was going to send me a copy
yeah.
when it was done. I'm just kind of hanging out there. I got a folder for it, and I look at it every now and then. I wonder.
Okay, well, that's another thing to add to the to-do list. I'll see if, I have room on my paper to write that down. Let's see. So you want the easement deed, is that what you're looking
I
for?
mean, you're not doing up the margins and over and around and down
Yes, I
like my
am, as a
mother
matter
used
of
to?
fact.
All of her recipes are on
Yep.
pieces of newspaper, up and around and down.
I think it was done because there was a huge controversy about the number of pages recorded, and I think it was recorded.
Oh, jeez.
So I'll see. And then, as a related issue, for those of you who haven't been there, the access through Browns Mill to the Corey Wildlife Management Unit is now very new and improved by Fish and Game, and is worth a look. Part of the negotiation with the planning board is there's a parking area delineated by boulders, which there are a lot of in an old gravel pit. And they've changed and moved the gate out to right near the right-of-way cul-de-sac, and there's a nice series of signs happening, so it's all looking pretty good. Maybe this year it'll get done, finally. So that's just a report on that one. And I have not dealt with the issue of Phragmites. That dropped a couple years ago when Northern Pass came to be. And so I just want to let people know, and I don't know if you have any resources, but we have stands of Phragmites in town, and they're just getting bigger.
And
So-
the reason that it got dropped is that aside from that, is that Kate primarily tried many times to find an applicator, a person who was licensed to do application for dealing with Phragmites, and we just couldn't find anyone.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
Well, we did have a company, and we worked at the point where the guy came out in the field, that was
Yeah,
the
but then they
principal.
disappeared.
And then they were gonna give us a quote, and then they said their computer died, and then they won't answer my phone calls.
Do you know who that
I think
is?
there was another one after that too, and I'll dig back to see if something popped up that, I know you were in the throes of Northern Pass at the time, and I think might have gotten dropped, but it's an old one, I think
An old one what?
after the one that you were trying to make contact with, that you lost contact with. I think there was another one. I think there was a card I gave you or something for another.
Yeah,
Other
there were people
applicator.
around, but this guy was gonna give us a great price.
Probably a typo, that's why I haven't called you back.
Well, I'll ask around. I know, I know of some sites where people have had success controlling Phragmites, but it's mostly on public land, and in those cases, the folks overseeing that land management got so frustrated with the applicator dynamics that they ended up just getting licensed themselves. So, but I can ask around and just see.
That seems to be
Anyone
the
knows
issue,
anyone, yeah.
having delved into the land of
Yeah.
applicators, it seems that it is a unusual field in terms of follow-through.
Well, who from Rockingham County are they licensed themselves, or they have an entity or that they
Like Rockingham County
use?
Conservation
Yeah.
District, yeah, so like Lenny
Lenny
Lord,
Lord.
and then 2 of his staff are licensed.
Yep.
They hire them
Yeah. I don't know.
under the table?
I do know some applicators who are, great guys and do good work, but they're foresters. So they're mostly working in forested settings, and so I'm not sure they're familiar or licensed for Phragmites, so. But I can ask around.
And as far as you know, pesticides are the only method still, right?
There's other, people have toyed around with plastic, putting down black plastic and smothering sites, but because Phragmites root suckers, it just creates kind of an exponential issue. So yeah, pesticides have been the most successful within a reasonable amount of time that I've seen.
Mhm.
Some group in Massachusetts was doing trampling, like they were trampling for
You heard it.
10 years.
How'd that go?
Goats, yeah, do they do Phragmites though?
It's on the Wikipedia page for Phragmites.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, they
Not
do.
good.
I know
Trampling by humans or livestock? Or something else?
humans.
You mean like you have a flash mob and everybody tramples?
Well, they kept bringing students out there to help measure the Phragmites infestation and realized that the places where the students had walked was actually the line was getting beat back. So they were like, okay, let's see if that works.
Like stomping divots
Yeah.
at a polo game, or what?
Yeah, so, but, I don't think that's proven to be successful. People are trying things, that's the
How
point.
about contra dancing?
Yeah, right. Yeah, oh yeah, I didn't know goats did Phragmites.
Yeah, I got some goods. We can bring them out there.
There you go. So, but I'll ask around.
Okay. That's good, because I think we're having some success with Knotweed, working with the town
Mhm.
along rights of way.
Oh, yeah,
Certainly
Deerfield's in
looks-
good shape.
It looks
It's-
much better.
compared to a lot, I drive to Durham every day for work, and compared to every other town in the seacoast, Deerfield's done a really good job keeping
You can
knotweed under
really tell
control.
the line of demarcation between us and Northwood
Oh, yeah.
on 43.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
It's like a
nothing and
wall.
then-
Yep.
And I've
I
actually,
see ours are coming back too, though.
Yeah.
they
seem to
do,
be
it
resprouting.
needs continuous
We could just do it.
decreasing.
We could just do it like Canada does. Everywhere we went up in Canada, it was like massive. They just embraced their inner knotweed.
See, I have to say, it's actually, I see now, there's some spots on my drive to work where it's bad, so bad I can't see. I mean, it actually is a hazard.
That's the
Like, I
safety
can't
issue.
pull out onto Route 4 in some places. It's really not ideal.
Massive, yeah.
That was the reason that we got the select
Yeah.
board support to
Makes
work with the road
total-
agent to make that
Makes
happen.
total sense.
Yeah.
So, and they keep going out and cutting it, but now which makes it worse, and they're just having to go out there, now they're out once a month. So I'm sure it's costing them more money to do that than to,
And I've been
Trying to
trying to
do
get Doug Saigan, because Deerfield's trying to do this work, to coordinate with the DOT district
yeah.
so that, because we have two big state roads here, why not cooperate with us
Yeah,
and do the same treatment so that they're not spreading it into our town
right.
when they do their mowing? So, not gotten very far in that, but that would be my hope. So anyhow, it remains an issue, Phragmites, and the longer we wait, the more of it shows up. So I'd like to find a solution this year. So all ideas are welcome.
Can you send out a note, maybe with just the location and scale that we're talking about,
In terms of,
like where you're
Occurrences?
seeing it and what?
Yeah, I think-
So I can do a drive-by and just wrap my head around.
yeah, Frank Mitchell actually did, I think, a kind of summary of the locations.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'll see
there's
if
a
I-
large stand on private property that we've been trying to deal with for several years. It's on Route 43 North,
Mhm. Yes, I know that one.
on the left.
Yes.
North of Wild Turkey, that's
Yes.
the biggest one I'm aware of. Ironically, it could be as a result of some work with Cooperative Extension back in the 1980s.
Most things are.
What?
Most things are.
Well, just gotta say, it seems that there was some work being done in those days that may have added to the incidence of floodwaters.
That caused disturbance.
Yep.
Some filling and whatnot.
Back in the old days, back when you used to be able to buy invasives from the state nursery,
Mhm.
them days.
So that's the largest, but there are some smaller populations popping up around town.
Are the people on the private landowners open and willing?
It's a mix.
Yeah.
But there's some on town lands as well. Conservation
There's
lands.
one population up in Epsom before you get to New Rye. And it's massive,
That's
just massive.
New Rye.
Swamp Road before New Rye.
Yes. And ironically, one of the applicators lives not far from there. Yeah. The guy was working on the knotweed for the town, and he wasn't aware of it. It is, looks thermonuclear, that Phragmites stand. It's huge. Okay, that's my story. I think I have everything listed here.
Okay, anyone else, have an announcement? Okay, then I'm going to propose or make a motion or whatever the correct terminology is that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
I
Any opposed? I think that was unanimous.
So people are certainly welcome to come on Wednesday when Eversource comes in. Conditional use permit discussion.
I have a date with my dog.
What?
My dog.
Oh, he can come too, or she can
And
come
we have a
too.
training class. So,
This is a perfect place to train. A lot of distractions.
we didn't get much done, yeah.